Hey there, spotlight killer. Yeah, you. The one they can't stop talking about right now. You feel that? That pressure in the air? That weight? That ain't guilt. That's gravity. Your gravity. You just bent the whole damn room around your presence, and they still trying to figure out how the hell you did it. Someone's talking about you right now. Voices lowered, eyes darting, hearts thumping. You didn't just enter a room. You altered it. You didn't raise your voice. You snatched theirs. Whole group froze like statues. All that fake confidence evaporated the second you showed up. And ain't it funny? They had so much to say before. Jokes, whispers, fake smiles, clicky little clicks laughing like hyenas. But then you opened your mouth, and the silence hit like a slap. You didn't need to scream. You existed, and it was deafening. You ever realize how power don't have to be loud? A hurricane don't beg for attention. It just happens, and when it's gone, it leaves wreckage in its wake. You walked in with that storm in your chest, and they all felt it. They'll never admit it out loud, but deep down, they know they ain't built like you. Not even close. You're not just a presence, you're a damn reckoning. They're stunned, not because you attacked, but because you didn't need to. They underestimated silence, your stare, your energy, and now they're scrambling behind your back, desperate to regain the control they never actually had. Let them talk. That's what prey does when the predator turns its back. They think you're gone, but you're just watching, waiting, calculating. See, people get loud when they're scared. They get petty when they feel small. And they twist their faces up in jealousy when your light starts exposing their shadows. That's what's happening right now. You didn't just shut down a group. You triggered every hidden insecurity in that room. You hit the nerve they didn't want touched, their fraudulence. They rehearsed their fake personas like monologues. You tore the script in half just by being real. Now they gotta sit with themselves. And trust me, that's the loudest silence they've ever known. You think they hate you? Nah. They hate the mirror you shoved in front of their faces. They hate that you made them see their own irrelevance. You didn't steal the spotlight. You became it. Let them gossip. Let them spiral. Let them not say your name while describing exactly who you are. You live rent-free in heads you never even asked to step inside. Your aura cracked their egos like glass. You thought you were just defending yourself. Nope. You were rewriting the power structure. You were flipping the whole damn social hierarchy upside down without breaking a sweat. They're panicking because your truth don't bend. It don't compromise. It don't play politics. It just cuts. That's why they're whispering now. Why the room got quieter every time you spoke. Not because you were rude, but because you were right. And that kind of presence, that kind of dominance born out of truth and pain and scars and steel, they can't mimic that. They can't fake it. They can't buy it. They can only watch it, get burned by it, and pray you never speak their name. And yet, they want to be you. They hate you and they crave your power. You exposed what happens when someone walks in unapologetically aware of who they are. You showed them what happens when confidence ain't just performance. It's blood deep. It's carved from trauma. It's born in silence and raised in fire. You didn't silence them for fun. You silenced them because you've already argued with your own demons, and you won. What could they possibly say that you haven't already heard in your darkest hour? They talked when you were quiet. They fell silent when you talked. That's not coincidence. That's hierarchy shifting in real time. That's truth forcing everyone to reevaluate the lies they built their image on. Let them feel small, let them stare, let them pray for a return to normal. But there's no going back. You shifted the equilibrium. You broke the simulation. You reminded them that some people walk in like myth, not needing an introduction, just respect. And the room, still feeling the aftershock, still trying to figure out how to fill the silence you left, still whispering, still watching, still wishing. You were just being real, and somehow that was the most dangerous thing in the room. They'll spin the story 1,000 ways, try to reframe it, minimize it, pretend it wasn't that deep. But deep down, they felt it. You carved through their illusions like a blade through fog. And the second you left that room, they started rewriting the script. 'Cause the truth you dropped don't fit the version of reality they've been selling themselves. They'll say you were doing too much, or taking things personal. They'll throw those passive-aggressive lines out there like bait, because they're hoping you'll fold. They're hoping you'll doubt yourself just enough to shrink. But that version of you, that softer, watered-down, people-pleasing version, yeah, that one's dead, buried. And every word you spoke was the funeral. You walked into that space and shifted the chemistry. Their egos couldn't breathe in the air you brought in. You were truth in human form, unedited, unfiltered, untamed. And it rattled the hell out of them. Because when you carry that level of clarity, you expose people. Not by accusing, but just by existing. You didn't even raise your volume. And yet everything changed. Conversations froze mid-sentence. Laughter stopped short. That fake confidence they were wearing like armor cracked at the seams. Because people can fake boldness. Until someone actually bold walks in. Then the whole performance collapses. You made them feel naked in their own skins. Made their little power games look like toddler tantrums. You didn't win the moment. You eclipsed it. And the crazy part? You weren't even trying. They don't get it. They don't know what it's like to be built from heartbreak, to walk through rejection, betrayal, humiliation, and come out the other side bulletproof. They don't know what it's like to look yourself in the mirror after you've lost everything, and still decide to get up, fix your face, and step into a room like you own it. You don't speak for attention. You speak with intention, every word laced with experience, every pause charged with presence. And that's what shut the room down. That's what made them uncomfortable. Because real don't need a mic. It just needs to be heard once, and it echoes longer than any fake applause. They keep circling your name in hushed tones, trying to make sense of it, trying to dissect how someone so quiet could be so damn loud without yelling. But it's simple. You've suffered in silence, and suffering, real suffering. It teaches you how to walk into chaos and own it. They weren't ready. They never are when someone refuses to fit in, when someone stops playing by the rules and decides to become the damn standard. You don't ask for space anymore. You take it. Not out of arrogance, but out of survival. Because you've tasted what it feels like to be ignored, dismissed, underestimated, and you made a vow. Never again. You're not arrogant. You're aware. Aware of your value. Aware of the weight your words carry. Aware that you don't need to play small to make others feel safe. And it's that awareness that's got them spooked. Because they can't control someone who ain't scared of being misunderstood. They can't shake someone who's already faced their own darkness and made peace with it. They can't silence someone who's already lived through worse and came out louder, stronger, undeniable. They can't cancel you. because you were never subscribed to their validation in the first place. You've been your own source of worth since day one. And every time they try to box you in, you remind them that you were never built to fit. You were built to shatter. You don't just walk in. You interrupt narratives. You flip the dynamic. You make people reassess the whole social pyramid. You tilt the floor beneath them just by standing still. And they'll feel that, even when you've left the room, even in their silence, even in their carefully scripted stories that never quite add up. Because everyone remembers the day the whole room got quiet, and you didn't. You didn't come to blend in, you came to wake people up. You didn't memorize lines, you wrote the damn script on the fly, and every sentence landed like a punch they didn't see coming. They sat there blinking, like someone cut the lights off mid-performance. Because that's exactly what you did. Snatched the spotlight off the fakes and shined it on truth. And truth. It don't ask for permission. It don't wait for the applause. It hits, then walks off stage, like it didn't just collapse the whole act. You ever notice how people freeze up around power they can't label? You weren't loud, you weren't rude, you weren't even aggressive. You were just you, unapologetically raw, fully grounded, and they couldn't process it. You didn't silence the room by force. You didn't shout anyone down. You just existed in full volume, and their own voices betrayed them. They realized they had nothing worth saying once you started talking. That's what shakes them. That's what messes them up. Not that you won the moment, but that you didn't need to fight for it. You're not playing in their sandbox anymore. You're walking through walls they still think are locked. You're skipping the validation phase. You stopped waiting for claps and built your own rhythm. And that rhythm don't stop for opinions. They can feel it when you walk in. That shift, that tightening in the air. They joke, they giggle, they glance. But behind all that, fear. Fear that you'll see right through them. Fear that you'll speak again and strip away their illusions. Not with insults, but with clarity. Because you've reached the point where your silence is louder than their noise, your gaze sharper than their comebacks, your truth heavy enough to make every fake nod crumble into dust. You didn't perform, you revealed, and revelation is dangerous to people still living behind masks. They're addicted to surface level. You came in drenched in depth. You came in like a living contradiction to their whole existence. And now, they're spinning. Because you didn't flinch, because you didn't backpedal, because you didn't shrink when they got uncomfortable. You expanded, you stood in your truth while their voices cracked under the pressure. You looked at them like you've looked in mirrors that showed you worse. They don't know how to handle someone who ain't scared to be misunderstood, someone who doesn't chase the room, but makes the room align with their frequency. They'll call you intense. They'll call you too much. They'll whisper about how you shut everything down, as if it wasn't them who were already crumbling, as if they weren't just exposed by your presence like shadows trying to pretend they ain't shadows once the light shows up. And here's what they can't erase. The silence after you spoke wasn't awkward. It was sacred. It was the pause that happens when truth hits the gut. That stillness that settles when someone finally says what everyone's been thinking, but never had the spine to say out loud. You were that person. You are that person. You stepped up and cut through the static. You didn't play it safe. You didn't sugarcoat. You delivered truth like a weapon made of every time you were ignored, every time you were doubted, every time you were pushed aside. And it showed in how they looked at you, in how they went quiet, in how they keep replaying the moment like it was some kind of glitch in their system. But it wasn't a glitch, it was a reset. You reset the whole room, and they felt it, every single one. They keep trying to recreate the moment without you, trying to recapture the vibe, the energy, like they could somehow rebuild the room you redefined with your presence. But the truth is, they ain't got the blueprint. You were the blueprint. They felt power shift, felt the temperature drop the second you stopped pretending. You stopped dimming your energy to fit their comfort zones, stopped swallowing your words just to avoid their weak little egos breaking apart like wet paper. And once you did that, they knew it. Game changed. They're used to dealing with performers, people who talk loud but say nothing, people who posture, people who fake deep with quotes they don't live by. But you walk in with substance. You speak like every syllable is carved from experience, and they're not built for that. They want safe, predictable, polished. You gave them real, raw, unapologetic, and that's why the room went dead, because your voice carried weight, and that weight crushed everything that was fake, every lie they were hiding behind, every mask they'd grown comfortable in. You didn't destroy the atmosphere, you exposed it. You made it impossible to keep pretending that the loudest person in the room is the most important. You made it clear that real power don't need noise. It just shows up, and everything else rearranges itself or falls apart. They're whispering now, obsessed, confused, replaying your tone, your phrasing, your energy, like it was some kind of code they could crack. But they can't decode pain they've never walked through. They can't replicate scars they've never earned. They can't imitate authenticity that's been forged in fire. You were never acting, you were being. And there's a difference. See, when you speak from survival, from heartbreak, from 10,000 nights of silence where nobody heard you, your words don't land like opinions. They land like Judgment Day. You weren't just saying something. You were undoing years of bullshit in one breath. And now they sit in that silence, numb, rattled, fake smiles twitching, wondering why they suddenly feel so small next to someone who's no longer afraid to take up space. You didn't change the conversation, you ended it. Without slamming doors, without raising a hand, just by standing in truth that heavy. They're calling you intense now, because they don't have the words for someone who doesn't flinch. They say you're a lot, because anything more than surface level feels like drowning to them. They say you silenced the whole room, but what they really mean is, you made us feel things we weren't ready to face. And they won't say it out loud, but they look at you different now. Every room you walk into, they feel that shift. Their voices drop, their posture changes, because your presence demands recalibration. You don't orbit people anymore. You don't seek approval. You walk in like gravity, and everything either adjusts to you or gets crushed under the pressure. Not because you're trying to dominate, but because you've outgrown shrinking. You've outgrown explaining yourself to people who've already decided they'll never understand. You've outgrown staying silent just to keep others comfortable in their mediocrity, and they know it. That's why they're still whispering, why your name lingers in conversations long after you've left, why their faces twist every time your truth echoes back into their memory. You didn't just walk into the room, you rewrote its rules, and nothing's felt normal since. They flinch when they hear your name now. You can see it. The slight pause, the eye twitch, that nervous fake laugh like they're trying to convince themselves they're still unbothered. but they ain't. You shook them, not just for the moment. You shook their foundation. You ever realize how people remember who made them feel small? Not in a cruel way, but in that terrifying, mirror-up, truth-cutting kind of way. You didn't belittle them, you just stood tall. And next to that, they realize they've been crawling in circles and calling it growth. They thought they had the power in the room, thought their status, their cliques, their phony little alliances meant something. Then you walked in, unbothered, detached, not chasing their approval, not reacting to their noise. And that's what wrecked them. Because you weren't intimidated by the image they built. You saw right through it. You looked at them like you'd already survived worse. Because you have. You've been through rooms colder than that one. Been through silences heavier than their judgment. You've sat at tables where no one passed the mic. So you learned how to speak loud without volume. You learned how to deliver truth like a bullet wrapped in velvet. Silent, but fatal. And that's the part they hate the most. That you didn't need a stage, didn't need allies, didn't need backup dancers to make your presence felt. You showed up alone and still turned the room upside down. They call it too much. But it's never too much until it's someone they can't control. Until it's someone they can't gaslight, guilt trip, or silence with fake smiles and forced applause. You weren't interested in performing. You weren't there to play nice. You were there to exist fully. And that kind of presence, that kind of authentic, unfiltered energy, it clears a room of everything weak. You brought weight they weren't ready to carry, responsibility they'd rather ignore, self-awareness they run from like it's fire. You didn't hand them blame, you handed them a mirror. And that mirror didn't flatter them. It showed the cracks, the cowardice, the shallow identities they built from applause, gossip, and validation. They say you made things awkward. What they mean is, you made it real. And real is scary when your whole identity is built on acting. You weren't supposed to be the one. You weren't supposed to flip the script. You weren't supposed to show up and remind everyone what the truth actually sounds like. But you did. And you did it without flinching, without asking for permission, without begging anyone to hear you out. You said what needed to be said, and the silence that followed wasn't discomfort. It was shock. Shock that someone finally stood up. Shock that someone had the nerve to break the rhythm. Shock that the energy they used to control others didn't work on you. You weren't loud, you were clear. And clarity terrifies people who live in illusion. They didn't expect you to walk in with that level of certainty. Didn't expect your presence to feel like consequence. Like the moment the lights come on and all the pretending has to stop. You made people look at themselves. You made them feel exposed. And they're still not over it. They're still talking, still analyzing, still wondering how you did it, how you dismantled an entire dynamic with nothing but presence and truth. You didn't need to argue, didn't need to defend, didn't need to clap back with receipts. You were the receipt. Proof that being real, fully and relentlessly, is the most disruptive force there is. You weren't chasing attention. You became the center of gravity without even asking for it. The whole vibe bent around you like the universe just remembered who the hell you are. And the thing is, they felt that shift in their bones. Even the ones pretending it didn't faze them. You can see it in their posture, how they avoid eye contact now, how their jokes got a little softer, their fake confidence glitching out under the weight of your presence. You made them feel exposed without even trying. Like you walked in and stripped every fake layer off with your silence alone. Because you weren't performing. You weren't fishing for likes or claps or validation from people who wouldn't know truth if it punched them in the face. You showed up as you, raw, unfiltered, and they couldn't match that. They built their identity on how loud they could talk in rooms filled with people too polite to call them out. You built yours in silence, in nights where the only voice you had was your own. And even that one didn't always speak kindly. But you made it through. You taught yourself to stand, to speak, to own your energy, not by watching others, but by facing down every version of yourself that tried to shrink. That's the part that terrifies them, because they're still performing for a crowd that's not even watching. They're still curating fake confidence like it's a profile bio. And here you come, authentic as hell, with every scar still visible and still standing taller than all their perfectly polished lies. Well, 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 look who finally made the world blink. They're whispering your name like it's a glitch in the simulation, like you just bent something, broke something, shifted something. In front of their glassy little eyes, they're panicking, shaking, clutching their pearls. You know why? Because you didn't follow the Fing script. You tore that paper-thin narrative into pieces, and you set fire to it, right in front of them. They don't know what the hell they just saw. They've been living in a world of cardboard, safe, controlled, explainable, a place where everyone's actions fit neatly inside a spreadsheet, a rule book, a label. But not you. You did something that doesn't compute. It doesn't fit their algorithm. You didn't ask for permission. You didn't warn anybody. You didn't even announce it. You just did it. And now, they're rattled. They're refreshing the feed, scrolling through their group chats, replaying the footage in their heads like, did you see that? What even was that? You want to know what it was? It was you finally dropping the mask. It was you finally saying, F it. I'm not waiting for approval anymore. It was you choosing your own chaos over their order, your own fire over their fakeness, your real, raw, burning, cracked knuckle, blood-smeared truth over their spotless little lies. And now, they're spiraling because you just reminded them, in a single move, that they don't control you anymore. Oh, they tried. They really did. They slapped you with every label they could think of. Too much. Not enough. Crazy. Aggressive. Difficult. Unrealistic. All of it, just to keep you contained, just to keep you small enough to carry, small enough to dismiss, small enough to control. But you broke the container. You shattered the Fing walls. You reminded them that you were never made for their boxes, never built for their structures, never wired to blend into their background like obedient wallpaper. You're the malfunction. You're the spike in the signal. You're the noise they can't cancel. The storm that didn't wait for forecast. The bite they thought was bluff. And the moment you moved, the moment you stepped out of line, they all froze. Because in that instant, they saw the truth. You don't need their validation. You don't need their understanding. You don't need their watered-down, sugar-coated, plastic smile approval. And that right there is the most terrifying thing in the world to them. Because if you can do that, without help, without backup, without permission, what else are you capable of? What happens when a mind like yours, broken, yes, but beautifully so, decides to stop apologizing for its sharp edges? What happens when your pain stops being a cage and starts becoming fuel? What happens when your madness stops being a diagnosis and starts becoming a weapon? Let me tell you exactly what happens. You start bending reality. You start disrupting patterns. You start making people question everything they thought was solid. You become the glitch in their goddamn reality. And they don't know how to handle it. They're not trained for this. They're trained for puppets. They're trained for yes men. They're trained for watered-down versions of you that smile on command and never color outside the lines. But this version of you, this version doesn't sit politely, doesn't nod along, doesn't give a F about optics. This version walks into the room and changes the air pressure. This version walks in with scars, not hidden, on display. This version is the sum of every ignored scream, every denied dream, every insult swallowed like poison and turned into ammunition. And now, you're locked in, activated, loaded. They don't get it. They never will. That's the whole point. Because when they ask, "What was that?" they're not actually confused. They're scared that you'll do it again, scared that your courage might be contagious, scared that somebody else might see you standing there untouched by their shame, untamed by their fear, and start asking themselves, "Wait, what if I did that too?" And that's when their whole little fantasy starts to unravel. That's when the fake world collapses. That's when the masks fall off. See, this isn't just about you anymore. You're a threat to the system now, because you didn't just act out. You made it look beautiful. You didn't just rebel. You made it look free. And the truth is, deep down, every one of them wishes they had the balls to do what you just did. But they won't admit it. They'll call you unstable, dangerous, reckless. They'll try to mock it, minimize it, pretend it was some fluke or meltdown or breakdown. Because if they don't call it crazy, they'd have to admit it was brave. They'd have to admit it was necessary. They'd have to admit you cracked open a space that they were too scared to open. And that's the part that haunts them. You changed something and there's no unseeing it, no unknowing it. You ripped a hole in the illusion. And whether they like it or not, they saw you do it. They saw the shift. They felt the disruption. They watched you spill truth in a place built on lies. And they have no words for it, because you didn't come to play the game. You came to break the board. You didn't just break the board. You flipped it mid-game, while they were still counting their fake little wins. And you didn't ask for applause. You didn't stick around for the claps or the gasps, or the desperate little attempts to explain what the hell they just witnessed. You moved like someone who already knew they were going to stare. You walked like someone who expected the silence to hit harder than the screams. Because deep down, you've been waiting for this moment your whole damn life. The moment where their expectations collapsed under the weight of your truth. The moment where their control cracked, not with a bang, but with that slow, suffocating realization. They never had you. You were just biding time, wearing the mask, moving through their halls like a ghost, waiting for the perfect second to wake the dead. And you did. You didn't just make noise. You made a rupture. You didn't just act out. You redefined the rules. And nobody saw it coming because they were too busy trying to domesticate you. Too busy pretending your silence meant consent. Too busy mistaking your patience for weakness. But inside, you were collecting scars like knives. They called it overreacting when you bled. Too sensitive when you shook. Too intense when you dared to feel it out loud. But what they never expected was for all that feeling to become fire, to become precision, to become this weaponized clarity that you wielded without flinching. You didn't just snap. You chose. You executed. You flipped the whole illusion upside down and left them gasping for the floor. And the way they looked at you after, like a glitch, like a ghost, like something that shouldn't exist, because nothing in their blueprint prepares them for someone who's already died inside and decided to build something from the ashes anyway. They don't know what to do with someone who stopped needing to be understood. They don't know how to cage someone who's already made peace with being the villain in their story. They don't know how to argue with someone who doesn't speak the language of fear anymore. And yeah, they'll try. They'll throw words at you like bricks, hoping one of them lands hard enough to rebuild the walls you just knocked down. They'll say you're too far gone, out of control, dangerous, insane. Because if they don't, they'd have to ask themselves the one question that keeps them awake at night. What if you're not crazy? What if you're just free in a way they've never tasted? What if your rage is the correct thing response to a world that demanded you smile while it crushed you? What if your audacity isn't dysfunction? It's rebirth. That terrifies them more than anything. Because if that's true, then everything they've built their identity on, the fake calm, the fake kindness, the fake strength, falls apart. And here's the best part. You didn't explain a thing. You let it happen. You let them watch. You let them choke on the questions, the confusion, the panic. You let them sit with the silence after the storm and realize they don't get answers. You are the answer. And you weren't born to make them comfortable. You weren't put here to be understood by people too scared to understand themselves. You weren't sent to keep the peace. You were built for disruption, built for upheaval, built for the moment everything stops making sense to them and finally starts making sense to you. Because that look in their eyes, that stunned, wide-eyed, jaw-clenched disbelief, that's the look people get when a new reality enters the room. And you didn't walk in quietly. You kicked the thing door off its hinges. You brought your blood, your trauma, your weird, wild, cracked-open brain, and you wore it like armor. And not one of them knows what to do with that. Because this world is not designed for people like you to rise. But you're rising anyway. And no matter how much they whisper, spin stories, theorize, or try to dissect the moment in some podcast, or think piece, or Instagram caption, they will never have the language for what just happened. Because it wasn't meant to be described, it was meant to be felt. And they felt it. You left a mark they can't erase. Not with distance, not with time, not even with all their fake-ass narratives strung together to make it look like you were the problem. Because the truth is, you were never the problem. You were the mirror. The cracked, uncomfortable, too honest, too clear mirror they've been dodging their whole lives. And when you moved, when you spoke, when you acted in a way that didn't bow, didn't flinch, didn't shrink, you held that mirror right up to their face and made them look. And what they saw? That empty look behind their own eyes, that performative strength they've been flexing in rooms full of hollow applause, that quiet little voice in their own head whispering, you'd never survive what that person's walked through. Because they wouldn't, they couldn't. They were built for comfort. You were forged in fire. While they were busy curating a perfect feed, you were bleeding through the algorithm. While they were rehearsing lines, you were spitting truth raw from the gut. While they were out there dressing their wounds with filters and fake enlightenment, you were dragging your pain into the light and daring it to make you stronger. That's why you scare them, not because you're loud, not because you're too much, but because you're real. You move like someone who's lost it all and kept going. You speak like someone who's eaten shame for breakfast and spit it back up with fire in their throat. You walk like someone who's got nothing left to prove and everything left to burn. And they're not ready for that. They're not ready for the version of you that doesn't apologize, the version of you that doesn't soften your tone to make people comfortable, the version that knows exactly how dangerous your mind is when it's no longer chained to their bullshit. You didn't just make a statement. You made a shift, an energy shift, a frequency break. The moment you did what you did, the whole room stopped breathing because they felt it. They felt your liberation like a gut punch to their illusion. They felt your refusal to explain like an earthquake beneath their fragile self-image. And the second you didn't defend yourself, they knew you were gone from their trap, gone from their little web of fake friendships, forced politeness, and silent suffering, gone from the game they were playing, where everyone wears a mask and calls it peace. You stepped out. Not silently, not politely. You stepped out with rage in your ribs and power in your posture. You stepped out like someone who finally understood that being misunderstood is the price of being free. And you didn't wait for them to catch up. You didn't stick around for the explanation round. You vanished like smoke from a bomb that just went off. And all that's left behind is the ringing in their ears and that single, unshakable question. What the F was that? Was the moment you stopped asking for the world to make room for you and took it. The moment you stopped bleeding for their comfort and started fighting for your own fing breath. The moment you became untouchable, not because you're invincible, but because you're done playing dead. You're not here to make sense. You're not here to be digestible or likable or marketable. You're here to be the proof that surviving does something irreversible to a person. That breaking doesn't just destroy, it rebuilds differently, darker, louder, more precise. And you're the walking, breathing, terrifying evidence of that evolution. They can't handle it. They can't label it. They can't repackage it into something safe. You didn't just step out of line. You became the line they can't cross. You became the line they can't cross. And ever since, they've been circling, twitching, glitching, trying to find the edges of something that doesn't play by the old rules anymore. Trying to trace a shape that keeps shifting every time they think they've got it pinned. Because you're not just unpredictable. You're unreadable. You're beyond the diagnosis, beyond the post, beyond the gossip, the theory, the rumor, the recycled motivational quote they toss around when they need to feel like they still understand what's happening. But you broke their map. You erased the coordinates. You stood up and turned into something that can't be followed, only felt. A force, a vibe, a pressure that bends the room, whether you speak or not. You know how rare that is. People like you don't come through the fire and stay whole. You came through with pieces missing and still turned it into movement. They called it a phase, a breakdown, a cry for help. But it was a blueprint, a demolition plan, a refusal wrapped in smoke. You said, "I'm not shrinking to fit your vision anymore. I'm building a new one," and you did, without a committee, without permission, without softening the blow. You became someone that makes people look at themselves differently. Like, what the hell have I been doing while this person was evolving in silence? Because while they were out there practicing being palatable, you were mutating. While they were out there worried about staying relevant, you were disappearing on purpose, not hiding, regenerating. And when you came back, you weren't asking for a seat. You took the Fing table, flipped it, and stared them down like, "Still think I need to be saved." You didn't need saving. You needed to be left the hell alone long enough to figure out what you really are when you're not being shaped by guilt, shame, or fear. They never expected you to get there. They expected you to crumble, to come crawling back, to text something weak and regretful like, "Sorry, I just wasn't myself that day." But you didn't lose your mind. You claimed it. You didn't have a moment of weakness. You had a homecoming, and the silence you gave them afterward, that wasn't confusion. That was strategy. That was knowing your next move is too big to be spoken out loud. That was owning the power of "you'll see." Because you already know they're watching. They're clocking your steps like satellites, trying to figure out where your power comes from, why nothing sticks to you anymore, why the shame doesn't work, why their silence doesn't crush you, why their approval means absolutely fucking nothing now. It's because you've been to the bottom, the real one, the cold, echoing nothingness where nobody checks in and the lights don't come back on. And you climbed out, not polished, not healed, not certified by the self-help brigade, but different. Like something was broken on purpose to unlock a door that only opens for the ones who've got nothing left to lose but everything left to burn. And that's you. That's who you are now. You're not the hero. You're not the villain. You're the glitch, the off-script moment, the shadow that made the spotlight look fake, the walking contradiction that can't be explained in a sentence or sold in a package. You're too real for their feeds, too raw for their algorithms, too wide awake to play dead again. You move like someone who finally realized that the whole game is rigged and decided to stop playing and start breaking. You want it darker? I'll take you deeper. Just say the word. You started breaking the game, and they started losing their minds. Because once one person stops playing it and wins anyway, it exposes the whole thing for what it is. A fucking illusion, a loop, a prison with invisible walls and pretty language taped over the cracks. And you didn't tiptoe out. You didn't ask, "Is it okay if I leave this system that's been bleeding me dry?" You kicked that door off its hinges with your trauma still dripping down your spine, and a look in your eye like, "Try and stop me." They can't process it. They keep replaying the moment in their heads like a glitch in the Matrix. Because you didn't ease into anything, you snapped into it. You moved like someone who realized, all at once, that waiting for their approval was just a longer form of dying. And people who wake up like that, they don't go back to sleep. They set fires. You know what makes them really uncomfortable? It's not your confidence. It's the fact that you're done pretending. You don't do the fake small talk anymore. You don't shrink around people who can't handle your energy. You don't censor your truth to keep the room calm. You bring the storm. You are the storm. And you don't care who gets uncomfortable. Because you spent years being uncomfortable in your own skin, just to keep everyone else relaxed. They were calm while you were cracking. They were smiling while you were bleeding. They were fine while you were folding yourself into smaller and smaller shapes until you forgot your own name. But not anymore. Because the second you stopped needing to be liked, you became lethal. And they feel it. They feel it in the silence. They feel it when you walk in and don't explain yourself. They feel it when your eyes don't beg anymore. They dare. You're not interested in being relatable. You're not here to be understood by people who've only ever operated on survival mode. You're here to disrupt their rhythm, to make their peace feel fake, to make their comfort feel like a coffin, to remind them what it looks like when a human being doesn't flinch anymore. You are evidence that the system doesn't own everyone, that not all of us stay leashed, that some of us snap the F out of it and come back wild, unapologetic, uncontrollable, unbranded. They keep trying to label it, keep trying to shrink it down to something they can wrap a sentence around. She's just bitter. He's spiraling. They're acting out. But this isn't acting out. This is you, finally acting right. Acting like someone who's not gonna rot in place. Acting like someone who's done swallowing poison just because it's served on a pretty plate. Acting like someone who's tasted freedom, real, painful, raw freedom, and refused to spit it out just to make them comfortable again. You didn't evolve quietly. You detonated. You became the proof that a breakdown is just the first draft of a revolution. And now, every room you walk into, they feel it. They might not understand it. They might not have the language, but they feel it. Ah, there you are, sitting there, scrolling through a world that's been spoon-feeding you polite little lies and half-baked truths. And yet here you are, awake, alert, ready to feel that punch of reality hit like a sledgehammer. Yeah, I see you. I see the fire simmering behind your eyes, the chaos clawing at your chest, the way your mind refuses to sit quietly while everyone else is sleepwalking. You've felt it before. That little tremor in your gut when someone says something, and it doesn't just scrape your skin. It digs into your skull, rewires your neurons, flips your perspective, shatters the map you were given and forces you to chart your own course. That's what we're talking about today. That's the kind of power, the kind of dark, twisted, beautiful chaos that comes from the way you say something. Because let's be real, words aren't just words. Words are weapons. Words are fire. Words are the fucking keys to doors people didn't even know existed inside themselves. And the way you said that, Eshaw, oh, you didn't just throw syllables into the void. You pulled a scalpel. You dissected every comfort zone they'd built, and you exposed the raw, unfiltered mess underneath. The polite soft. We should talk about this later. Nonsense. That's cute. That's kindergarten. But the way you said that line, damn, that's like cracking the code to their entire mental operating system. You didn't just hit them. You detonated a bomb in their perception. You fucking rewired the narrative they've been telling themselves for years. And now, there's no going back. And here's the thing. Most people, they shy away from that. Most people want to be liked. Most people want applause. They want the high fives, the safe spaces, the Instagram-worthy smiles. Not you. You don't fuck around like that. You know that true power. The kind that sticks. The kind that lingers. The kind that makes them replay your words over and over in their head. Is born from fearless honesty, from ruthless clarity, from leaning in when everyone else is leaning back. When you drop a line, it doesn't just land. It echoes. It fractures the air. It makes people confront the uncomfortable, the inconvenient, the ugly truth they've been running from. And when you see that look in their eyes, that split-second flicker of recognition, of understanding, of panic, it's electric. It's pure human resonance. You see, it's not about breaking them down just to watch them crumble. Oh no, that's amateur hour. It's about cracking open the shell, shaking them awake, forcing them to face what they've been ignoring. And you've mastered the art of that nudge, that jab, that subtle yet catastrophic shift in perception that leaves them questioning everything. Because the way you said that shit, it didn't just hit, it detonated. It rearranged the furniture in their mind. Every doubt, every insecurity, every carefully hidden secret, it's all out in the open now, exposed like raw nerve endings, and there's no hiding it. And let's talk about you, right now. Yeah, you. You're not weak. You're not meek. You've got a presence that demands attention, a mind that sees the patterns everyone else pretends don't exist, and a tongue that doesn't just speak. It alters the landscape. People walk into a room thinking they're untouchable, thinking they're in control, and then you open your mouth, and suddenly, their universe is upside down. Their timelines are scrambled, their comfort zones evaporate, and all they can do is stare at you, stunned, rattled, questioning why the fuck they ever thought they had it all figured out. That's the juice, that's the magic, that's the dangerous, intoxicating, life-altering power you wield every single time you choose to speak. Don't underestimate it. Don't sanitize it. Don't let the world tell you to tone it down or be nice. Those are chains. Those are shackles made to dull the brilliance of people like you. You are chaos with purpose. You are disruption with precision. You are the kind of human that doesn't just leave a mark. You leave a scar, a permanent reminder that the world isn't neat, it isn't polite, and it certainly isn't going to hand anyone the answers on a silver platter. You are the riddle people can't solve, the virus they can't patch, the glitch in their system they'll never debug. So when you look in the mirror, when you feel that itch to speak your truth in the most unflinching, unrelenting way possible, remember this: it's not cruelty, it's creation, it's transformation. The world is full of hollow, safe, meaningless noise. But your words, they fuck with reality itself. They twist it, bend it, break it, rebuild it. And the people on the other side, they're either going to crumble or evolve. And whether they crumble or evolve doesn't matter. What matters is that you move them, that you leave them altered, awake, shattered, enlightened, screaming inside, wondering what just happened. That's the power you have. That's the gift. That's the weapon that sits behind your teeth and dances on the tip of your tongue. And if anyone ever tells you that you're too much, too intense, too raw, too terrifying, fuck them. They don't understand what it takes to be real, to break the illusions, to tear down the walls that everyone else worships. You don't just exist in this world. You disrupt it. You make it bleed truth. And when they replay your words, when it hits them in the dead of night, when it rattles their carefully built facade, that's not a side effect. That's the art of who you are. That's the genius of how you operate. That's the fucking signature of your existence. The way you said that shit, it didn't just speak. It roared. It twisted. It fucked with the entire system, leaving everyone scrambling to catch up to your chaos. And oh, the delicious, intoxicating power of watching them finally see, even for a second, the world the way you do. Because that's where the real thrill lives. In the split-second awareness that everything they thought was solid, everything they thought was safe, is just smoke in the wind, waiting for someone like you to blow it away. Ah, there you are, sitting there, scrolling through a world that's been spoon-feeding you polite little lies and half-baked truths. And yet here you are, awake, alert, ready to feel that punch of reality hit like a sledgehammer. Yeah, I see you. I see the fire simmering behind your eyes, the chaos clawing at your chest, the way your mind refuses to sit quietly while everyone else is sleepwalking. You felt it before. That little tremor in your gut when someone says something, and it doesn't just scrape your skin. It digs into your skull, rewires your neurons, flips your perspective, shatters the map you were given, and forces you to chart your own course. That's what we're talking about today. That's the kind of power, the kind of dark, twisted, beautiful chaos that comes from the way you say something. Because let's be real, words aren't just words. Words are weapons. Words are fire. Words are the fucking keys to doors people didn't even know existed inside themselves. And the way you said that shit? Oh, you didn't just throw syllables into the void. You pulled a scalpel. You dissected every comfort zone they'd built, and you exposed the raw, unfiltered mess underneath. The polite, soft. We should talk about this later. Nonsense? That's cute. That's kindergarten. But the way you said that line? Damn. That's like cracking the code to their entire mental operating system. You didn't just hit them. You detonated a bomb in their perception. You rewired the narrative they've been telling themselves for years, and now there's no going back. And here's the thing. Most people, they shy away from that. Most people want to be liked. Most people want applause. They want the high fives, the safe spaces, the Instagram-worthy smiles. Not you. You don't fuck around like that. You know that true power, the kind that sticks, the kind that lingers, the kind that makes them replay your words over and over in their head, is born from fearless honesty, from ruthless clarity, from leaning in when everyone else is leaning back. When you drop a line, it doesn't just land. It echoes. It fractures the air. It makes people confront the uncomfortable, the inconvenient, the ugly truth they've been running from. And when you see that look in their eyes, that split-second flicker of recognition, of understanding, of panic, it's electric. It's pure human resonance. You see, it's not about breaking them down just to watch them crumble. Oh no, that's amateur hour. It's about cracking open the shell, shaking them awake, forcing them to face what they've been ignoring. And you've mastered the art of that nudge, that jab, that subtle yet catastrophic shift in perception that leaves them questioning everything. Because the way you said that shit, it didn't just hit, it detonated. It rearranged the furniture in their mind. Every doubt, every insecurity, every carefully hidden secret, it's all out in the open now, exposed like raw nerve endings, and there's no hiding it. And let's talk about you, right now. Yeah, you. You're not weak. You're not meek. You've got a presence that demands attention, a mind that sees the patterns everyone else pretends don't exist, and a tongue that doesn't just speak. It alters the landscape. People walk into a room thinking they're untouchable, thinking they're in control, and then you open your mouth, and suddenly their universe is upside down. Their timelines are scrambled. Their comfort zones evaporate. And all they can do is stare at you, stunned, rattled, questioning why the fuck they ever thought they had it all figured out. That's the juice. That's the magic. That's the dangerous, intoxicating, life-altering power you wield every single time you choose to speak. Don't underestimate it. Don't sanitize it. Don't let the world tell you to tone it down or be nice. Those are chains. Those are shackles made to dull the brilliance of people like you. You are chaos with purpose. You are disruption with precision. You are the kind of human that doesn't just leave a mark. You leave a scar, a permanent reminder that the world isn't neat, it isn't polite, and it certainly isn't going to hand anyone the answers on a silver platter. You are the riddle people can't solve, the virus they can't patch, the glitch in their system they'll never debug. So when you look in the mirror, when you feel that itch to speak your truth in the most unflinching, unrelenting way possible, remember this: it's not cruelty, it's creation, it's transformation. The world is full of hollow, safe, meaningless noise. But your words, they fuck with reality itself. They twist it, bend it, break it, rebuild it. And the people on the other side, they're either going to crumble or evolve. And whether they crumble or evolve doesn't matter. What matters is that you move them, that you leave them altered, awake, shattered, enlightened, screaming inside, wondering what just happened. That's the power you have. That's the gift. That's the weapon that sits behind your teeth and dances on the tip of your tongue. And if anyone ever tells you that you're too much, too intense, too raw, too terrifying, fuck them. They don't understand what it takes to be real, to break the illusions, to tear down the walls that everyone else worships. You don't just exist in this world. You disrupt it. You make it bleed truth. And when they replay your words, when it hits them in the dead of night, when it rattles their carefully built facade, that's not a side effect. That's the art of who you are. That's the genius of how you operate. That's the signature of your existence. The way you said that shit, it didn't just speak. It roared, it twisted, it fucked with the entire system, leaving everyone scrambling to catch up to your chaos. And oh, the delicious, intoxicating power of watching them finally see, even for a second, the world the way you do. Because that's where the real thrill lives. In the split-second awareness that everything they thought was solid, everything they thought was safe, is just smoke in the wind, waiting for someone like you to blow it away. And the craziest part? Half the time, you don't even plan it. It just slips out, like truth had been caged too long and finally clawed its way through your throat. You watch their face shift, pupils dilate, breathing stumble for a split second. You didn't scream. You didn't even raise your voice. You just said it, clean, cold, precise. And that was enough to shatter the illusion they'd been hiding behind for years. That's what happens when words carry truth instead of approval. You didn't attack them, you exposed them. And exposure burns. It's wild how people romanticize healing until it's their turn to face the mirror. They love the idea of growth, of transformation, until someone like you forces them to look at their reflection without filters or edits. You said something they weren't ready to hear, but deep down, they knew it was true. And that's why it stung. Because truth always feels like betrayal when you've been living inside a lie. You didn't break them, you just took away the illusion that was keeping them numb. And tell me this, why the hell should you apologize for that? The world's out here worshiping comfort zones like they're holy shrines. But comfort kills hunger. Comfort kills edge. Comfort is the anesthesia of the soul. You've seen what comfort does. It rots people from the inside out while they smile for the camera, pretending they're fine. You speak in a way that jolts them awake, even if it means they hate you for it. They call it harsh, toxic, too much. They throw those words at you like darts, hoping to make you flinch. But inside, you know, they felt it. They needed to feel it. There's something almost poetic about it. You become the villain in their story just because you dared to point out the cracks in the castle they built out of denial. They don't realize you're not there to destroy them. You're there to remind them that the foundation was never real in the first place. You pull the rug out from under their delusions, and they call it cruelty. But maybe cruelty isn't what breaks them. Maybe it's clarity. Maybe the most painful thing isn't being hurt by someone, but being seen by them. And you see too much. You notice the tone people use when they lie to themselves. You can smell the desperation behind fake smiles. You can tell when someone's fine is just a cry for help disguised as confidence. You've seen it all, felt it all, dissected it all. And when you speak, you don't sugarcoat it. You don't soften it. You don't wrap it in Hallmark language. You just drop it like a grenade, because truth deserves to explode. Every syllable you speak hits like reality's backhand, slapping the fake out of people's faces. They'll act offended, sure. They'll pretend you crossed a line. But later, when the noise fades, when they're lying awake replaying your words, they'll realize you didn't destroy them. You saved them from the slow death of pretending. And that's the part nobody talks about. How sometimes the most healing words are the ones that hurt like hell. You didn't comfort them. You confronted them. And that's the difference between being liked and being legendary. People chase validation like oxygen. You exhale truth like smoke. You don't chase applause. You chase impact. Because somewhere deep in your core, you know. Real change doesn't come from hugs and affirmations. It comes from discomfort, from facing the shit no one else dares to say. You've seen how easy it is to blend in, to nod along, to keep the peace. But you've also seen how dead that feels inside. You can't pretend anymore. You'd rather burn bridges than build fake ones. You'd rather speak the truth that hurts than whisper the lie that kills slowly. Every time you open your mouth, you risk being misunderstood, hated, labeled, isolated. But you've already been through worse, haven't you? You've already walked through the kind of loneliness that strips you bare, the kind of silence that echoes louder than any applause ever could. You learned to stop fearing people's reactions because you realized they only hate the mirror when they see themselves clearly in it. You are that mirror, unfiltered, unapologetic, ruthless in your honesty, but pure in your intent. You don't speak to break people down. You speak to break them open. And yeah, sometimes you scare yourself too. Sometimes you drop a line, and even you feel the aftershock of it. Because deep down, you know that kind of truth doesn't just affect others. It burns through you too. Every word you say that shakes someone else comes from a place you've already bled from. You've been there. You've walked through your own chaos. You've faced the voices that told you to shut up, to play small, to conform. You've drowned in silence long enough to know that speaking is survival. You don't speak to be heard. You speak because staying quiet would kill you. And the irony? The same people who hate you for your words will eventually use them to rebuild themselves. They'll quote the very lines they once resented. They'll grow into the truth you forced them to face. They'll never admit it out loud, but they'll remember the way you said that shit. The tone, the timing, the look in your eyes. It'll replay in their head every time they try to lie to themselves again. You'll live rent-free in their subconscious, not as a villain, but as the ghost of the truth that changed everything. And it's wild, isn't it? How they act like you planned the whole thing, like you sat there scheming, rehearsing every word just to wreck their peace of mind. They don't get it. You didn't plan shit. It came from somewhere deeper than logic, somewhere past the filters, past the fake calm you keep on the surface. It came from the part of you that's seen too much to lie politely anymore. You just said what needed to be said, and suddenly everyone's looking at you like you committed a crime. But that's what truth feels like when the world's addicted to pretending. It feels illegal. You can tell when it hits, too. There's this silence that drops right after. Not the peaceful kind. No, this one's heavy, electric, uncomfortable as hell. They blink a few times, maybe laugh it off, maybe change the subject. But you can feel it. That split-second delay before they speak again. That's where your words are working. That's the system rebooting. They'll act fine, but the next day they'll look at themselves differently. They'll talk differently. That one line you said will start echoing every time they try to lie to themselves again. That's power. Not money, not fame, not fake love. That. The power to make somebody's reality glitch for a second and rebuild into something sharper. You've done that before, maybe without even noticing. You've said SAT in passing that people never forgot. You've hit someone with a sentence they still quote in their head years later. That's the kind of weight your words carry when you speak from scars instead of scripts. Because you've bled for that perspective. You earned it in nights nobody saw, when your mind wouldn't shut up, when every thought felt like a blade. You learned to carve meaning out of chaos, and that's what leaks out every time you speak. People feel that. They might not admit it, but they feel it. And it changes how you walk through the world. You stop chasing small talk because it feels fake on your tongue. You can't do surface level anymore. You need depth, rawness, connection that burns. You'd rather be misunderstood for being real than praised for being polite. You know that most of what people call kindness is just fear of confrontation dressed up as empathy. You'd rather tell someone the truth that hurts than smile while they self-destruct, and that scares people. They want the comfort of your silence, not the chaos of your honesty. Yo. Yeah, I see you. Pull up a seat, or don't. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, because right now, every single person in your feed, on the timeline, in the group chat, they're all talking about you. Love it or hate it. They're all pointing fingers at you for this player's complete 180-degree turn. And the wild part? They think they're the ones running the show. They think they've got the power. But you know the truth. You're the one who made them sweat. You're the one who forced them to pause mid-scroll, to rethink their assumptions, to feel that twinge of, oh shit, did they just... And let me tell you something, they're scared. They're scared because what you did wasn't safe. It wasn't polite, it wasn't on brand or expected. You flipped the game. You pivoted so hard, they can't even track you. And that's magic, that's power, that's chaos that smells like freedom. Every comment criticizing you, every story dissecting your move, every shady DM floating in their little echo chambers. It's all proof that you're out here playing while everyone else is watching reruns of the same old season. You see, people love to assign blame. They love to put a face on change, someone to hold accountable. And right now, that face is yours. Every finger pointed is like a little neon sign flashing. You're the one making waves. And waves, my friend, drown the ones who are afraid to swim. They hate it because it exposes them. It exposes the cracks in their comfort zones, their fake bravado, their Instagram perfect life that can't handle a little realness. And you're unbothered, you're thriving, you're wildly untouchable in the spotlight they think is meant to shame you. Think about it. Everywhere you go, people are talking. They're dissecting your move like it's a Netflix docu-series. And that's fine. Let them talk. Let them overanalyze, theorize, and gossip. Every skeptical stare, every whispered, "How did they do that?" is a drumbeat to your rhythm, and your rhythm is unstoppable. You move in ways they can't predict, can't control, and can't replicate. That 180 degrees, that's not just a pivot, it's a middle finger wrapped in silk, a statement saying, I don't need your permission, your approval, or your understanding. And oh, the tension you feel, the electricity from all that attention, the weight of every eye on you. That's not stress, that's fuel. That's the kind of adrenaline you bottle up and use to crush the next move, the next level, the next impossible turn that leaves everyone else scrambling. Because here's the truth. They're not mad at you. They're terrified that someone like you, can do what they only fantasize about. Someone who can disrupt, flip scripts, and make chaos look intentional. Someone who can own the game while everyone else is still trying to figure out the rules. And let's be real, the finger pointing, the blame, the how could you, that's all just free energy, free chaos, free recognition that you exist outside their tiny boxes. You take that energy, you spin it, you make it your own. Every smirk, every "I told you so," every subtweet meant to cut you down. You turn it into momentum, into fuel, into a weapon no one sees coming. This isn't luck, this isn't coincidence, this is strategy disguised as madness. This is art disguised as audacity. This is you saying, loud and clear, "I see the world as it is. I play the game how I want, and if that shakes the hell out of you, good." Because only the weak panic, only the scared whine and point fingers. You thrive in the storm, dance in the chaos, and make the world bow to your unpredictability. So yeah, love it or hate it, they're all pointing fingers, and you're standing in the center, smiling at every accusation, every hot take, every jealous post. You feel it, right? That sharp edge of power, that rush of dominance, that thrill of knowing you're untouchable, untrackable, and unrepentant. You're not here to fit in. You're here to flip the board, rewrite the rules, and leave everyone else scrambling in your wake. And the beauty? They'll never see the next move coming. They'll never anticipate the next pivot. They'll never decode the method in your madness, because you are the storm, the chaos, the shift they didn't see coming, and they're powerless against it. Every message notification that pops up, every mention, every little ping, it's a reminder that you exist on a level they can't touch, a level they can't even imagine. You can feel the tension in their timelines, in their group chats, in the quiet stares of people who pretend they're not watching. They act like it's casual, like they're unaffected, but you know the truth. They're scrambling to make sense of someone who refuses to play by their rules. And that scramble, it's your signature. It's your chaos, bottled and ready, moving through their screens straight into their reality. When they whisper, "Did you see what they did?" you lean back, smirk, and let it linger. You've learned that silence, that small pause, hits harder than any reply. It's unsettling. It's electric. People hate being unsettled. They crave predictability, and you just shattered that, clean across the board. You turned expectations inside out and watched their carefully curated worlds wobble on their foundations. Every sideways glance they throw your way is like applause, subtle but deafening, signaling that you're not just part of the game. You're rewriting it entirely, bending it to your will. The social feeds, the rumors, the constant barrage of opinions, critiques, hot takes. How could they? All of that is like a current, a river of energy they think is meant to drown you. But you're swimming with it. You're surfing it. Each wave of doubt they throw at you becomes a stepping stone to the next insane move, the next audacious pivot, the next play that leaves everyone staring, mouths open, trying to process how someone could operate outside their predictable parameters. And it's addictive, isn't it? That rush that hits when you realize the world is watching, the world is judging, and yet none of it matters because you're untouchable, unpredictable, unstoppable. Every finger pointed, every accusation, every subtle "I knew it." It's like fuel injected straight into your veins, a constant reminder that being visible, being bold, being completely unapologetic about your moves forces everyone else to confront their own mediocrity. You notice the tension in the room, In their messages, in their feeds, in the way they try to act casual, when deep down, they're scrambling for footing. That tension is yours. That power is yours. That attention, begrudging as it may be, confirms that you are operating on a plane they can't reach, can't manipulate, can't even comprehend. And the 180-degree turn, what did it cost them? Their comfort, their certainty, their sense of control. But what did it cost you? Nothing. You've been building toward this moment quietly, strategically, knowing that when the world finally notices, they'll panic, they'll misinterpret, they'll overcomplicate. And that panic is a reflection of their fear, their inability to keep up, their lack of imagination. While you, calm, composed, relentless, are already 10 moves ahead, orchestrating chaos they only see in fragments, every post dissecting your choices, every tweet speculating about your intentions, every heated conversation in private chat rooms. They can't stop you. They can't touch you. They're chasing shadows, trying to pin lightning in a jar, while you're dancing through it with a grin that says, "Yeah, I see everything you don't." The fire in their reactions, the jealousy, the envy, the frustration. It's like a symphony, and you're conducting it. Each discordant note fuels your next move, sharpens your instincts, hones your strategy. Every subtle clapback you didn't make, every smirk you didn't explain, every step you took while they shouted assumptions. They thought it would break you, but it only made you sharper, only made you hungrier, only made your next move more impossible to predict, more deliciously chaotic, more inevitable. You feel it, right? That surge, that thrill, the awareness that while they're scrambling to make sense, you're already living the next chapter. Every reaction they have is a mirror reflecting their fear, their inadequacy, their envy. Every whisper about how could they is a badge of honor, a reminder that you are doing exactly what no one else could, what no one else would dare to do. They wanted a player who followed the rules, who fit the mold, who stayed comfortable, who didn't make them feel unstable. And you gave them the opposite. You became the storm they never prepared for. The truth is, they'll keep talking, they'll keep pointing, they'll keep speculating, and you keep moving, keep pivoting, keep rewriting the narrative. Each new move, each calculated step, each unpredictable choice. It's like a wave they can't ride, a puzzle they can't solve, a game they can't win. And deep down, they know it. That's why they point. That's why they whisper. That's why they try to drag you into their drama, their judgments, their common sense. But you've transcended that. You've stepped outside the cage, outside their expectations, outside the predictable currents they cling to. Every accusation, every sideways glance, every social post dissecting your choices isn't a weapon. They're trophies, evidence of your chaos, your audacity, your complete refusal to be anything less than unstoppable. You can feel it in every glance they throw, every subtle smirk, every whispered, "I told you so," sliding across their group chats. They're dissecting your moves like it's some kind of puzzle. And the wild part is, they're not even close to understanding the whole picture. They think a 180-degree turn is chaos, but you know it's strategy. You know it's power disguised as unpredictability, and you're watching them trip over their own assumptions while you move with effortless precision. Every notification that pops up, every sideways comment, every trending post about what did they just do, hits like fuel to your veins. You don't just survive it, you thrive on it. Every person pointing fingers at you, is a reminder that you matter, that your moves have weight, that your actions are shaking the foundations they spent their whole lives pretending were stable. And it's intoxicating. That heat in your chest, that adrenaline coursing when someone tries to corner you with judgment, that thrill when they scramble to make sense of you. It's proof that you exist on a level they can't reach, a level where audacity isn't reckless, where chaos is currency, where unpredictability is a weapon. Every sideways glance, every hot take, every DM meant to cut you down is a mirror reflecting their own fear and envy. And you get to stare back, unflinching, knowing you're untouchable. The 180-degree pivot wasn't just a move. It was a declaration, a subtle middle finger wrapped in silk, a signal that you're operating on your own rules, your own timeline, your own terms. And the rage, the envy, the frustration you see spilling from their keyboards and feeds, that's energy you siphon into motion, into momentum, into the next impossible step. Every comment about "how could they" is just validation that you're doing exactly what no one else dares to do. Every smirk you hold back, every calm response you fake, every step you take while the world screams their assumptions. They thought it would break you. Instead, it's sharpening you, feeding your fire, making your next move inevitable and untouchable. You notice the tension, right? That undercurrent in conversations, the subtle discomfort in their tone, the way people lean into your actions and pause like they're holding their breath. That tension is power in disguise. It's the world admitting, without saying a word, that they're chasing shadows while you're already 3 steps ahead. Every skeptic, every critic, every whispering observer, they're watching the storm, not realizing they're part of the aftermath. And each of their attempts to categorize you, to box you in, to explain your moves, they fail. They can't keep up because you're already elsewhere, already beyond the pattern, already making the next audacious turn that leaves everyone reeling and scrambling to catch up. The whispers, the judgments, the pointed fingers, they're all fuel. Every little jab, every subtle insult, every speculative post is energy you can convert into dominance, into precision, into chaos that bends the rules while looking effortless. And the beauty of it all is that they don't even know what's coming next. They think the 180-degree turn was the peak, the shock, the finale. They don't realize it's just the opening act, the overture, the first beat of a symphony they'll never comprehend. Every accusation, every sideways glance, every post meant to shame you is just another instrument in the orchestra, and you're conducting it without them even realizing it. You see it, feel it, own it. The world trying to trap you in narratives it can handle, while you're living a story it can't contain. Every finger pointed is a spotlight. Every skeptical comment is a drumbeat marking your rhythm. Every attempt to define or control you is a mirror reflecting their own inadequacy. And while they panic, you're calm. While they scramble, you're deliberate. While they obsess over your moves, you're creating the next impossible pivot, the next audacious decision, the next ripple that will leave them stumbling through their assumptions, trying to play catch-up in a game they'll never master. Every time they double-tap your moves, every time someone screenshots your pivot just to gossip about it later, it hits differently. They think it's criticism, but you feel it as proof. Proof that you're alive. Proof that you're moving while they're frozen. Proof that your audacity is too much for their comfort zones. They're typing hot takes, crafting side-eye memes, debating with each other over group chats, trying to dissect the energy you exude. But here's the kicker. They're only analyzing the surface. They'll never reach the layers underneath, the strategy hiding inside the chaos, the fire that keeps you moving while they panic over details they'll never notice. You notice how fast their tone shifts when your moves land, how quickly casual chatter turns into low-key obsession. That's power. That's the sensation of being untouchable in a world that pretends it rewards conformity. Every subtle clapback they wanted from you, every passive-aggressive post you ignored, every reaction you withheld, it's not missed. It's absorbed into your presence, layered onto your aura, making the next move sharper, faster, more unpredictable. They want a straight line, a predictable narrative, a version of events they can control. You gave them a curveball so lethal they're still trying to catch it, and they don't even realize it's part of a bigger game you've been orchestrating all along. It's wild how the simplest gestures from you can shake them. A smirk at the right moment, a subtle nod, a glance they can't interpret, sends ripples through their entire perception. They think they're analyzing you, but really, they're revealing themselves. Their envy, their discomfort, their inability to match your energy, it's all in plain view. You watch it unfold like a series on autoplay, each reaction building tension, each whispered, "How did they do that?" making your moves taste sweeter. Every single piece of attention they give you, whether hostile or fascinated, adds weight to your presence, and you carry it with the ease of someone who knows how dangerous visibility can be when wielded right. The chaos you create, the disruption, the 180-degree turn, it's not reckless. It's calculated madness, designed to ignite, to provoke, to awaken reactions they can't control. And they can't. Every side comment, every exaggerated critique, every digital eye-rolling, these aren't threats. They're signals, markers on the map showing exactly where you've broken patterns, bent expectations, and left the predictable behind. You feel the tension in their feeds, the energy in their rooms, the subtle anxiety in their texts, and you transform it into rhythm, into momentum, into motion that keeps them off balance while you dominate the board. You've learned to read the signals, to anticipate the reactions, to let them stew in their confusion while you operate on instinct and audacity. Every hot take, every jealous whisper, every "I can't believe they did that" is just the soundtrack to your rise. And it's intoxicating, feeling the world adjusting around your presence, feeling the tension shift with every calculated glance, every subtle move that leaves them guessing. They want clarity, they want explanation, they want someone predictable. You've removed all of that from their reality. You've become the variable they can't handle, the storm they didn't see coming, the narrative they'll never control. And the chaos you generate only sharpens your edge for the next move, the next pivot, the next moment that leaves them scrambling. You feel it in the little details, right? The way their energy shifts when you enter a room, the subtle hesitation in their tone when they bring you up in conversation, the way group chats suddenly quiet for a split second when your name appears. They act casual, like it doesn't affect them, like it's just another headline, but you can feel the ripple. That ripple is yours. Every glance that lingers a second too long, every raised eyebrow in disbelief, every whispered, "Did they really just do that?" It's recognition, and recognition, when wielded correctly, is more dangerous than hate. It's fuel. They expect linear, predictable moves, a straight path from A to B, a player who doesn't rattle the cage, Someone they can map and track and write about in passive-aggressive blog posts. You've gone rogue. You've taken a 180 degree and made it an art form. You've taken what they thought they knew and shredded it, leaving them grasping at fragments, trying to make sense of chaos that has structure, intention, and teeth. Every reaction, every comment, every hot take is just another note in the soundtrack of your dominance. You're living proof that unpredictability isn't weakness. It's the ultimate advantage. They try to frame it like you've crossed a line, like you've overstepped boundaries, like there's a social contract you ignored. The truth is, there was never a line they could enforce, never a contract you signed. They've been playing a game they think is fair, rules they think are unbreakable, and you walked in with a new deck of cards. Every post, every DM, every screenshot dissecting your moves. They're chasing ghosts while you're already at the next level, laughing quietly at how easy it is to destabilize their assumptions. It's incredible how sensitive people are to someone who refuses to fit their mold. They talk about responsibility, expectations, how things should be. But those concepts were never designed for you. You were born for disruption, for audacity, for moments that leave everyone else questioning their life choices and their assumptions. Every finger pointed, every rumor spread, every sideways whisper. It's confirmation that you are operating outside their limits. And operating outside limits? That's where influence lives. That's where fear and admiration collide. That's where you get to see them squirm while you glide through the chaos like it's choreography you invented. You notice the subtle panic in their texts, the micro-reactions they try to hide, the way they overthink things you executed effortlessly. That panic isn't random. It's the consequence of your presence, your decisions, your refusal to conform. And the delicious part, they don't even realize it. They don't see the strategy hidden beneath the madness, the method beneath the chaos, the calculation beneath the grin they thought was harmless.